Welcome to Pharmaste NAPLEX Preparation Tutor.
Before we begin, take a slow breath in and gently breathe out. Let your shoulders relax. Today, we are going to take concepts that may look intimidating and make them manageable one step at a time. Remind yourself, I do not need to know everything at once. I only need to understand the next step. Today, we will review key biostatistics formulas for the NAPLEX. We will focus on what each formula means, when to use it, how to calculate it, and how to interpret the answer in a clinical context.
Okay, we've got a clear clinical ladder to climb today. 1. Basics, central tendency and risk. 2. Relative risk and reductions. 3. Calculating NNT and NNH. 4. Odds ratio and hazard ratio. And finally, 5. Pharmacoeconomics and the ICER. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Basics, central tendency and risk.
So let's dive into this first step by reviewing the absolute foundational building blocks of clinical data. Whenever you look at a clinical trial on your board exam, they're going to describe the patient population using measures of central tendency. The mean? That's simply the mathematical average of the group. The median is the exact middle value when you line every patient's data up in a neat, ordered list from lowest to highest. And the mode is just the value that pops up the most frequently. Knowing these instantly tells you if the trial's patients actually resemble the patient standing right in front of your pharmacy counter.
Once we know who is in our trial, we need to know what happened to them. Calculating basic risk is super straightforward. It's just looking at the part out of the whole within one specific group. Step 1. Count the subjects who had the unfavorable event. Step 2. Look at the total number of subjects in that exact group. And Step 3. Just divide the events by the total subjects, right? It's just a basic percentage, but honestly, it forms the entire foundation of everything else we're going to calculate today.
Moving right along to Section 2. Risk reductions, relative risk.
Now let's see how our foundational numbers build when we start comparing a treatment group to a control group, because this is where the magic of clinical trials actually happens. Here we have the formula for relative risk, or RR. It's simply the risk in the treatment group divided by the risk in the control group. It measures the probability of an event happening with the active drug compared to the placebo. So, if a patient asks you, "Hey doc, what are my chances of getting a headache on this new drug compared to not taking it?" Well, relative risk is exactly what answers that question. Now, we absolutely must distinguish between relative risk reduction, RRR, and absolute risk reduction, ARR. Look, confusing these two is a classic board exam trap. Here's a fun fact for you. Pharmaceutical marketers absolutely love advertising RRR because it almost always gives this massive, impressive-sounding percentage compared to ARR. But ARR is just the simple subtraction of the two percentages. It tells us the true, absolute difference in outcomes between taking the drug and not taking it. Don't fall for the marketing hype on the exam. Let's actually put this into practice. I want you to actively pause the explainer right now and calculate the ARR using these fresh clinical numbers. Ready? Your control group risk is 20%. Your treatment group risk is 15%. So what is your absolute risk reduction? Take a quick second and do the math.
Got it? The answer is 5%, which we can also write as the decimal 0.05. You literally just took 20% and subtracted 15%. Easy, right? But what is the clinical so what here? An absolute 5% drop means that for every 100 patients you treat with this new medication, you will absolutely prevent 5 adverse events that would have happened if they were just on the placebo. That's real patient impact.
All right, climb into Section 3, calculating NNT and NNH, clinical application. The crucial point here is taking that absolute risk reduction and applying it to figure out how it impacts our daily patient volume. This is where we bring the math straight into the pharmacy, introducing the number needed to treat, NNT, and the number needed to harm, NNH. The formula is beautifully simple. It's just 1 divided by the ARR. But hey, major warning for your exam here. You must always convert your ARR percentage into a decimal first. You divide 1 by the decimal, not the whole percentage number. Don't let that trip you up.
Now, what's really fascinating about these rounding rules is how they dictate safe medicine. For NNT, which is a benefit, we always round up to the next whole number no matter what the decimal is. Why? Well, if the math says you need 14.2 patients to prevent an event, treating 14 just isn't enough. You have to treat that 15th patient to guarantee the benefit. Conversely, for NNH, which is a harm, we always round down. If the math says 14.8 patients treated will cause a harmful event, we have to assume the harm happens at patient 14. We always want to make the most conservative, patient-safe clinical estimates possible.
Let's test this out. Go ahead and pause the explainer again. Plug our previous ARR decimal of 0.05 into the NNT formula. What is the number needed to treat?
Did you get it? The answer is 20 patients. 1 divided by 0.05 equals 20. This means that, as a pharmacist, you need to dispense this medication to exactly 20 patients in order to prevent exactly one unfavorable event. It totally grounds these abstract statistics into the tangible reality of a busy pharmacy counter, doesn't it? Moving on to Section 4. Odds ratio and hazard ratio, specialized ratios.
Next up, we shift from simple risk to specialized ratios. These are often used in retrospective studies and time-to-event analyses on the NAPLEX. When you have a retrospective case control study, you can't calculate regular risk, right? Because the outcome has already happened. Instead, we use the odds ratio, or OR. When you're looking at a standard 2x2 data grid with exposure on the side and outcome on the top, you just cross-multiply. Multiply cell A by cell D and divide that by cell B multiplied by cell C, AD over BC. Boom. It calculates the odds that a diseased patient was exposed to a certain risk factor.
Then we have the hazard ratio, or HR. The formula is the hazard rate in the treatment group divided by the hazard rate in the control group. Now, this acts exactly like relative risk, but with one critical difference. It specifically factors in the element of time. It doesn't just ask, did the event happen? It asks, at what rate did it happen over the course of the entire trial? You're going to see this frequently in survival analysis or oncology trials. Okay, here is your universal cheat code for instantly interpreting whether an OR, HR, or RR shows a benefit or a harm. If the ratio equals exactly 1, there is zero difference between the groups. If the ratio is greater than 1, the treatment group had a higher risk or odds of the event. And if the ratio is less than 1, the treatment group had a decreased risk. Seriously, commit this framework to memory right now because it instantly tells you if a drug is helping or hurting compared to the control. It's a lifesaver.
All right, final section. Section 5, Pharmacoeconomics and the ICER, Cost Effectiveness.
For our final step on the ladder, we apply all this biostatistical understanding to the financial reality of pharmacy practice. Yep, we have to talk about cost. Welcome to the incremental cost effectiveness ratio, or ICER. The formula is the difference in costs divided by the difference in clinical effects. Basically, cost of drug 2 minus cost of drug 1, all divided by the effect of drug 2 minus the effect of drug 1. This formula calculates the exact price tag of one additional unit of clinical benefit. Interestingly enough, in countries with nationalized healthcare, a specific ICER dollar amount is often the hard legal cutoff for whether a drug is approved for citizens at all. It tells a hospital formulary committee exactly how much extra they're paying for that slight improvement in care.
Let's do our final calculation together. Pause the lesson and calculate the incremental cost effectiveness of choosing drug A over drug B. Here are your numbers. Drug A costs $500 and gives 5 symptom-free days. Drug B costs $100 and gives 3 symptom-free days. What is the ICER? Work it out really quick.
Okay, let's walk through it. This brilliantly illustrates the whole concept. We take it step by step. The cost difference is $400. That's 500 minus 100. The effect difference is 2 extra symptom-free days, which is 5 minus 3. So, we divide the $400 extra cost by the 2 extra days of effect. The final pharmacoeconomic value is $200 per extra symptom-free day. This tells the healthcare system exactly what they are buying when they decide to upgrade to drug A.
As we wrap up this tutorial, I want to leave you with a challenge for exam day. Always look past the raw math. When you calculate an NNT, an ARR, or an ICER, don't just find the number and quickly move on. Take a breath and ask yourself, what is the clinical story behind these numbers? How do these metrics dictate actual patient safety and real pharmacy budgets? Because ultimately, behind every single decimal, ratio, and percentage on your exam, there is a real patient waiting for your recommendation. Keep studying hard, keep climbing that ladder step by step, and you are absolutely going to be ready for this. You've got this.